Plenty of time. What's that? Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. Done. I'm not the one wearing a different jacket right now.
Yep, we go to dinner like t-shirts.
Can you explain what you just said? I want to take one to dedicate on the next piece to the ladies in the audience.
It's easy to say. Look at that shiny redwoods up there.
One of them was coming out of B502. Wow. Two marking places.
Derek needs to meet you with a couple of those down there. They're all like, beep.
move as quickly as you can. You went from being ahead, now the time is prepare to.
On behalf of the faculty, I'd like to welcome you to the 2017 Honors Convocation. Please rise for our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched at the twilight's last gleaming, and the rocket's red gleam, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good afternoon, and welcome to the 94th Honors Convocation of the University of Michigan. I'm Paul Courant, Interim Provost and also Professor of Public Policy, Economics, and Information. Please join me in thanking Olivia Johnson again for that spectacular rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner. Today, we are proud to recognize the accomplishments of students on all three University of Michigan campuses. These students and the faculty members we are honoring are people whose extraordinary accomplishments stand out even in this community of extraordinarily bright, thoughtful, and engaged people. They represent the very best of the University of Michigan and help us all to reach for the ideal of the university, a place where ideas are valued, shared easily, and discussed freely. We are gathered on the last day of winter. The spring equinox comes in just over 16 hours. And in the spirit of renewal and growth that comes with the spring, it's a good time to appreciate those among us. Am I in the right place for you? Those among us who have contributed so much to our community. This is a special moment in the academic year. It's one of the few times when we pause at midstream rather than at the beginning or the end of something. Creating this moment indicates the importance we attach to the accomplishments of the teachers and students we recognize today. And although we recognize them as two separate groups, the distinction is subtle because students teach and teachers learn, as well as vice versa. Today's celebration also affirms our belief in the importance of intellectual work. The platform party today includes academic leaders from the Flint and Dearborn campuses, executive officers of the university, and the deans of the schools and colleges whose students we recognize today. The Provost Council on Student Honors has selected Alexander Keim to be this year's student speaker. Alex is a senior in the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts. A poet and social justice activist, he has designed and led creative writing workshops at the Neutral Zone for 3 years. He credits the Ann Arbor Teen Center with encouraging him as a youth to explore links between artistic expression and social activism. For his honors thesis, he authored a book of poems about gender, racism, and collective liberation. He also taught an honors program mini course exploring tropes and archetypes in music, poetry, and the visual arts. A gifted communicator, he regularly facilitates identity-based dialogues and workshops for UM's program on intergroup relations and the Educational Theater Company, among others. Following graduation, Alex will join U of M's Master of Social Work program. Alex.
Good afternoon. In the early stages of writing about open-mindedness in the university, I realized I had made a mistake. In all I had put on the page and wanted to express, there was nothing about me to give those statements a foundation. When I found out I was accepted into the School of Social Work as a junior, I cried my eyes out because I can still vividly remember a time where I did not see myself as someone who would have a future, despite my numerous privileges. This was due to a number of factors, including a queerness I am still continuing to understand and a mind that does not work in a way that is considered normal. I do not know where I would be without the work and love of countless people, many of whom are women and/or people of color, immigrants, Muslims, Jews, queer, trans, and/or fall outside of our societal definition of able. Any conversation on open-mindedness in the university is woefully incomplete without the marginalized, and yet at every level of society, oppressed people are asked to be gracious when confronted with the belief that we should not be loud or exist in the first place. I feel like it should be obvious, but bigotry is actually quite the opposite of what it means to be open-minded. The most valuable thing that this university has given me was a connection to people and resources that challenged me to dig deeper into what I thought I knew about the world and other people. They did not claim to give me all the answers, and instead gave me the space and encouragement to begin learning critical lessons in history and sociology about the numerous ways in which this colonized continent has never been anything close to fair or just. There are many who would have us disregard this bloody history in favor of alternative facts, which is all the more reason to insist on it. Through dialogue, reading, and reflecting, I have learned the immense value in consistently questioning my beliefs and how they got into my head in the first place. Ideally, these ways of thinking would be taught to everyone, whether they are on a university campus or not, and marginalized people would receive justice accordingly. But one look at this university community tells me that these lessons have not been learned equally. In the mini course I taught this past fall that focused on artistic critique and structural violence, I did my best to approach it like every other workshop and dialogue I've facilitated, encouraging people to be aware of the fundamentally different lives that people lead because of what they do or do not experience. As a university community, it is our duty to consistently place ourselves in support of inclusive and open thought, even and especially as it leads to critique of this and other institutions. To do anything else would be disingenuous in a place where we refer to ourselves as the leaders and best. The victors will only be valiant when they challenge white supremacy and imperialism, cis-heteropatriarchy, religious exclusion, xenophobia, classism, and ableism. We must leave space for people different from ourselves. Thank you. Our minds and what they come up with do not exist in some vacuum of objectivity, and it is far past time for us to do better. Acknowledging where our perspectives and intentions come from is essential if we are ever to truly and fully work together to improve the planet. We must all mutually commit ourselves to critical and contextualized education processes that reflect our dire need for justice. In closing, to sustain these difficult efforts in a world that drains and takes, love is not all we need, but it is certainly what we must start with. When we genuinely care for humanity, the stark contrast between listening to a different perspective and giving an uncritical platform to violence becomes clear. And that makes all the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, for your contribution, and you make us all proud of a Michigan education. Preparation for my remarks this afternoon began, as it often does when I have to speak, by checking with the Oxford English Dictionary, which defines open-mindedness in an extremely straightforward way. The meaning is straightforward, as I said, straightforward, receptive to new ideas. The OED goes on to note that in contemporary English usage, since about 1970, it is a word that is not used frequently. Our speakers today will likely offer varied perspectives on its meaning. I suspect that Alex and I have already contributed to a momentary surge in its usage. Today's theme, the university's role in promoting open-mindedness, is most appropriate for our bicentennial year. When the university was established in Detroit in 1817, the founding documents laid out a curriculum that was itself open-minded. It outlined 13 fields of study, incorporating science and introducing economics, a departure from the classical orientation of East Coast colleges that focused on ancient languages, philosophy, mathematics, and religion. From the beginning, the University of Michigan, or Catholepistemiad, as it was called at the time, was committed to ways of thinking about the world that challenged and contradicted each other. And this practice continues as we regularly add to new areas of study to the curriculum. The founders recognized that the essential work of universities, extending human knowledge, could only be done if faculty and students were challenged by ideas that forced them to question their own thinking. Their goal, in today's parlance, was a place where people would be forced beyond their intellectual comfort zone. The work of faculty and students is learning, and it's really hard work. It requires you to be receptive to, even to seek out, information that challenges what you believe to be true. The fundamental requirement is intellectual honesty, and you can't have that without continual questioning of a kind that is often hard on both body and soul. Students and teachers, and again, there is less difference here than might appear, we're all doing the same work, have to be open-minded and willing to push on that which puzzles and troubles and interests them and push on each other. This is how we move human understanding, writ large or writ small, forward. An English professor at Georgia State, Rob Jenkins, has compared a student who has been challenged and stretched by conflicting ideas to an athlete who has gained physical strength and agility by pushing against resistance. Students who have taken courses outside their major, stuck with hard courses, and engaged their teachers and peers in spirited debate have engaged in what he calls cross-training for the brain. A happy byproduct of this training is that it develops the abilities and inclinations that make people good problem solvers, a skill that is useful in any field of endeavor, including those as yet unknown to us. Open-mindedness turns out to be practical as well as virtuous. In today's world, the need for open-mindedness is clear, and the challenges to it are considerable. Partisan news sites reinforce the well-documented human tendency to search for evidence and evaluate evidence in a way that favors one's initial belief, a sort of my-side bias. In addition, the immediacy and brevity of some forms of social media encourages communication without reflection and the distribution of content that lacks complexity and nuance. At the same time, increases in partisanship, sometimes hyper-partisanship, have deprived us of useful examples of debate and deliberation. How can we as individuals and as a university counter these pressures that threaten our ability to be open-minded in our work and thought? The university must be steadfast in its commitment to offer models of open-mindedness that will enable students and faculty to search for truth, test ideas, and form new understandings. Our responsibilities to you include courses that present difficult ideas, ideas that you or we or elements of society may not like. Teachers to help you develop your ability to dissect ideas, evaluate evidence, find flaws in arguments, your own or those of others or theirs, and develop new understandings of the world. Valuing your ideas and activities that challenge our views, and welcoming the conversations, speak-outs, and teach-ins that cause us to re-examine our own thinking. And providing you with examples of how to do the hard work of changing your mind about things you thought you knew. Indeed, I would argue that a fundamental requirement of open-mindedness and academic excellence is a continuing asking of the question, what would it take for me to change my mind? If we do our jobs well, you will carry open-mindedness with you as students and as citizens, bringing your keen and questioning minds to bear on the problems of the world. As we honor your achievements today, we're proud to see that you're off to a terrific start. You may wonder how the students we honor today came to be here. To be invited to attend today's convocation by one's school, college, or campus, a student must attain university honors for both winter 2016 and fall 2016, except there's an exception because that's how we do things at Michigan. Seniors who earn university honors in either of those terms are also invited to attend honors convocation. The University Honors Recognition is awarded to students who earn a 3.5 average during a term while taking a minimum of 14 credit hours, 12 of which are graded. I will now introduce the deans from the undergraduate schools and colleges in Ann Arbor. I ask that the dean and university honors students from each school or college, from that school or college, please stand and be recognized. The order of introductions is the order of the founding of the schools and colleges. Please, Dean Andrew D. Martin and the University Honors students from the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts, please stand. Just a few of you. LSA is not only the oldest of our schools, but also the largest. Director Jan Hu and the University Honors students from the School of Dentistry. Associate Dean Nancy Mason and the University Honors students from the College of Pharmacy. Dean Alec Gallimore and the University Honors students from the College of Engineering. And a few of those. Interim Dean Robert L. Fishman and the University Honors students from the A. Alfred Taubman College of Architecture and Urban Planning. Dean Elizabeth Moji and the University Honors students from the School of Education. Dean Scott DeRue and the University Honors students from the Stephen M. Ross School of Business. Associate Dean Maria Carmen Lemos and the University Honors students from the School of Natural Resources and Environment. Senior Associate Dean Melody Racine and the University Honors students from the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. Dean Patricia Hearn and the University Honors students from the School of Nursing. Senior Associate Dean Elizabeth Yackel and the University Honors students from the School of Information. Assistant Dean Joanne McDaniel and the University Honors students from the Penny W. Stamps School of Art and Design. Dean Lori Plout-Snyder and the University Honors students from the School of Kinesiology. Dean Susan M. Collins and the University Honors students from the Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy. Doug Knurr, Provost of the Flint campus, and Daniel Little, Chancellor of the Dearborn campus, will recognize and present the University Honors students from their campuses. Provost Knurr.
Will the University Honors students from the University of Michigan Flint please stand and be recognized? Students, on behalf of Chancellor Borrego and the entire University of Michigan Flint community, I congratulate you for being among the leaders and the best. At the University of Michigan Flint, we practice an educational philosophy rooted in engaged learning and engaged citizenship. And while I congratulate you, I also want to thank you. Thank you for using your knowledge, skills, and resources to enhance the quality of life in our community and our region, and for your continuing commitment to and examples of excellence. Let's also take a moment to recognize that few of us achieve this kind of accomplishment alone. Today we have with us parents, grandparents, spouses and partners, siblings, extended family, sons and daughters, friends and others. To all of you, I also say thank you for making today possible for our students. We celebrate your achievement as both a beginning and an end. You have done well, and I am confident that you will continue to do so. You will make strong contributions to our collective future, regardless of your career path. Continuous learning and engagement with others in leadership and humility will keep the spirit of curiosity and service that you have cultivated at the University of Michigan Flint alive throughout your lifetimes. Congratulations again to all of our honorees here today, and please accept our best wishes for your continued success. Thank you.
I would like to call upon the University Honors students from the Dearborn campus to please stand for our recognition. Congratulations. The recognition which you receive today for your academic achievement is well-deserved, and I am honored to be the chancellor of your campus. While we recognize the Dearborn students who have received university honors, it is also appropriate that we recognize the honors program on our campus, where many of these students are enrolled. Our honors program provides an important resource in the intellectual development of our undergraduate students. More than that, it enriches the intellectual climate of our campus. To achieve your exemplary academic achievements while succeeding in the many other aspects of your lives in which you are engaged is truly remarkable and deserving of our recognition. You do great honor to the University of Michigan Dearborn campus, and I call upon all members of this academic community of the University of Michigan to recognize you and to celebrate you for your great work. Congratulations.
In addition to university honors, the university recognizes superior academic achievement with two other awards. The William J. Brandstrom Freshman Prize was created in 1960 by Mr. Brandstrom, an attorney and philanthropist of Fremont, Michigan, whose desire was to promote excellence in education. Through his generous gift, each year, the University of Michigan is able to recognize and encourage first-year students who obtain a high level of academic achievement during their first semester. First-year students who rank in the top 5% of the school or college in which they are enrolled and earn 14 credit hours or more are recognized as winners of the William J. Brandstrom Freshman Prize. Will first-year students designated as winners of the William J. Brandstrom Freshman Prize please stand? Congratulations. You may be seated. There you are. And now I would like to introduce to you the James B. Angel Scholars in attendance. We award this honor, named for the university's third president, to students with an all-A record for 2 or more consecutive terms, in which they carry at least 14 credit hours per term, 12 of which are graded credits. I would first like to ask our 2-term Angel Scholars seated in the audience to please rise. Congratulations. Today we are paying special tribute to those students who have completed 3 or more consecutive terms of all A's, and I invite all 3, 4, 5, and 6-term Angel Scholars to come forward and to be greeted by President Schlissel and myself. You will be escorted to the stage by our faculty marshals.
An unscheduled announcement. Michigan 73-69. Go Blue.
Once again, a round of applause for these Angel Scholars. It is now our special privilege to recognize the Angel Scholars with us today who have sustained the highest level of academic achievement for more than 6 terms. These students are seated on the platform, and I ask that they come forward individually as their names are called. Mika Lavak-Manti, Associate Professor of Political Science and Philosophy and Director of the Honors Program in the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts, will introduce the students.
This first group of students has achieved 7 consecutive terms of all A's. Mark Adams. Vivian Anderson. Elizabeth Bedrick. Laura Bratkin. Rachel Cannon. Megan Cansfield. Eric Colum. Brandon Coy. Jenny DeBlanc. Rishi Goyal. Paul Hamilton. Riley Haupt. Brooke Hoosman. Yusef Katamish. Jacqueline Kutorski. Kevin Landwehr. Euron Emily Liu. Carl Marco. Patrick Mullen Koyoy. Tsukumo Niwa. Kavita Rual. Dean Robinson. Dominic Russell. Daniel Schwartzberg. Kevin Shaw. Shafali Sood. Sarah Stapper. Sarah Stecker. Monica Topolovec. Austin Wara. Melissa Walker. Jacob Warren. Jonathan Williams. Molly Williams. Kate Uhas. The next group of students have achieved 8 consecutive terms of all A's. Ryan Bison. Nenita Maganti. Timothy Peterson. This next student has achieved 9 consecutive terms of all A's. Paul Geisler.
We are also pleased to recognize Adelia Davis, who has been named a Raoul Wallenberg Fellow. As noted in your program, the university's Wallenberg Fellowship was established in 2013. It honors Raoul Wallenberg, one of the university's most distinguished graduates. Mr. Wallenberg brought intellectual acuity and great curiosity about the world to his studies in architecture. A native of Sweden, he was in that country's diplomatic service during World War II. Stationed in Budapest, he worked quietly and effectively to coordinate the rescue of thousands of Jews in Hungary by issuing protective passports and sheltering them in buildings he had designated as Swedish territory. The Wallenberg Fellowship provides a graduating senior with the opportunity to learn about and contribute to society through an independent project anywhere in the world. Adelia was selected as the Wallenberg Fellow for 2017-18. She is seated on the stage, and I'd like her to stand and be recognized. Stay up. You got to stay up, yeah? A native of Detroit, Adelia is a senior studying biopsychology, cognition, and neuroscience with a pre-med concentration. As a first-year student, she was part of the Michigan Community Scholars Program, and that experience deepened her passion for social justice. Adelia is active in many campus programs. She has served as a peer advisor, mentor, or board member for the Center for Global and Intercultural Studies, the Comprehensive Studies Program, University Housing, and Counseling and Psychological Services. As a Wallenberg Fellow, Adelia will undertake a project using children's literature to compare the representation of blacks in the United States and South Africa. She plans to explore how the implicit and explicit messages children receive through literature affect their self-image. Adelia will travel to South Africa to engage 8 to 12-year-olds who are black in dialogues about 8 to 12-year-olds who are black in dialogues about identity and purpose. Congratulations, Adelia. In 1988, yes, cool, good. In 1988, the Board of Regents established a series of professorships to recognize outstanding contributions to undergraduate education. Named after Arthur F. Thurnow, a student at Michigan from 1902 to 1904, this series of professorships is supported through a trust fund he left to the university. Mr. Thurnow wanted to return to the University of Michigan something of the value he had gained here from being an undergraduate here. In that spirit, the Thurnow Professorship Program is designed to honor tenured faculty whose commitment to and investment in undergraduate teaching has had a demonstrable impact on the intellectual development of our students. It is my pleasure to introduce the 2017 Thurnow professors. Evelyn Al-Sultani. Evelyn, you can stand up. Professor Al-Sultani is director of the Arab and Muslim American Studies program in the Department of American Culture and an associate professor of American Culture in the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts. Valeria Bertacco is professor of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science in the College of Engineering. Deborah Goldberg is the Alzada U. Clover Collegiate Professor of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology, Associate Chair of the Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology, Professor of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology in the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts. Mark Moldwin. Is Associate Chair, Climate and Space Sciences and Engineering, Professor of Climate and Space Sciences and Engineering in the College of Engineering. Logan Skelton. Professor of Music, Piano, in the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. I'm also pleased to present Kathleen Sienko, Associate Professor of Mechanical Engineering and Biomedical Engineering in the College of Engineering. She was named a Thurnow Professor in 2016, but was unable to attend the Honors Convocation last year, so here she is. And one of the 2017 Thurnow Professors couldn't be with us today, Donald Zach, Burton V. Barnes Collegiate Professor, Professor of Natural Resources, Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, School of Natural Resources and Environment, and Professor of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology in the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts. The message is that our great teachers are great at lots of other things too, but they are great teachers. Okay. Each spring, we invite a Thurnow Professor to address students at Honors Convocation. It's my pleasure to introduce Professor Elizabeth Anderson, a faculty member in the Department of Philosophy. Professor Anderson was named a Thurnow Professor in 2004 in recognition of her outstanding teaching, mentoring, and her strong and enthusiastic support of undergraduate research. Professor Anderson's own path-breaking scholarship has helped shape the research agenda in such diverse areas as egalitarian political theory, democratic theory, feminist and social epistemology, and the philosophy of economics and race. The author of 2 influential books and numerous scholarly papers, she is currently working on a history of egalitarianism from the mid-1600s to the present, and a study of moral learning in the history of abolition and emancipation. Among other accolades, she has received the LSA Excellence in Education Award and the John H. Darms Award for Distinguished Mentoring. She is one of the most vigorously open-minded people I know. Professor Anderson, thank you for your dedication to your scholarship, to your students, and to the university. We're delighted that you will address us today. Please come forward.
It's a thrill and an honor to stand before you today and address you at Honors Convocation. You all have so much to be proud of, and so do your parents. Congratulations to you all. I've been teaching at the University of Michigan for 30 years. Every year, I learn new things from my wonderful students, and I hope they've learned from me. This year threw a gigantic surprise to many of us with the results of the presidential election. In the aftermath of the election, many observers noted that partisan polarization was higher than at any time in generations. And many observers connected this fact to a decline in open-minded communication between Democrats and Republicans and independents. More and more members of each party live in different areas of the country, meet less often, and pay attention only to their preferred media sources. It's not exactly that they aren't speaking to each other. Often they're insulting, ridiculing, trolling, and screaming at each other. But insulting, ridiculing, trolling, and screaming are no way to persuade anyone to reconsider their opinions or to find common ground. Our theme for this Honors Convocation is the role of the university in promoting open-mindedness. Recent events show that we have a heightened need for open-mindedness, and by that I mean openness to others and to their concerns, with a preparation to change one's mind in response to other people and their concerns. This semester, I decided to revise my Introduction to Political Philosophy course with this need in mind. Philosophy as a discipline is committed to open-mindedness. It's committed to examining opposing points of view, examining their strengths and weaknesses, and encouraging students to think not only about the strengths of their positions, but also objections to those positions. Philosophers ask questions like, do humans have free will? Or are all our actions causally determined by laws of nature? Would a just society redistribute income more equally, even if that led to lower economic growth? Or should it let free markets determine the distribution of income, even if that pushed many people into poverty? From our point of view, it's essential to examine the strengths and weaknesses of both points of view. Philosophy is also an argumentative discipline. We ask our students to consider diverse points of view in argumentative mode, to make an argument for their position, consider objections, and reply to those objections. However, most of the time in philosophy classes, we ask students to draw their objections from the texts that they are reading or out of their heads. This semester, in light of our country's increasing difficulties with speaking to each other, I decided to require that each student have a conversation with someone who disagreed with them and to write about what they learned from that conversation. It was a seemingly small but important change in my standard paper assignment. When students are asked to make an argument for a position, they take their task to be to refute all who disagree with them. But when they are asked about a conversation, to actually have a conversation with someone who disagrees with them and to write about that, they first have to listen to someone else, a living person, not a text written possibly long ago, nor just objections that they imagine that an opponent would make. And when they are asked to write about what they learned from that conversation with another person, this encourages them to take seriously the possibility that they might change their minds in response to the other. Instead of seeing their assignment as sticking to their guns, they were free to decide that they had initially been wrong or to modify their view to accommodate their conversation partner's ideas or to seek a synthesis of views. The results of this change in my teaching assignment were heartening. Students who disagreed with one another about the issues of the day, about, for instance, whether the top 1% deserve their immense wealth or whether liberal society can effectively address racism, sat down and listened carefully to each other, and many of them did change their minds. Instead of seeing argumentation as having winners and losers, as a competitive game in which one side proves their superiority to the other, they saw the respectful exchange of views as an occasion to learn from each other. This is the key to open-mindedness, not trying to win arguments, but to listen carefully and engage the other side, not trying to troll or score points, but to be prepared to change one's mind. It's a disposition universities can and ought to teach more vigorously. That's a disposition I hope you have learned here at University of Michigan. The world needs it more than ever. You will make the world a better place by exercising it vigorously. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Ricky and Nicholas. That was terrific. I am pleased to present Mark Schlissel, the 14th President of the University of Michigan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Provost Courant, for the introduction. Let me thank you also for stepping up and serving as interim provost. It's a very difficult job. It's actually the most difficult job on campus, more difficult than my own. Provost Pollack, who many of you remember through the years, about 2 weeks from now will become the president of Cornell University. So it's very exciting, a great example of leadership coming from the University of Michigan. I'm proud to offer my utmost congratulations to our University of Michigan honor students from Ann Arbor, Dearborn, and Flint. Your high levels of achievement at our university are truly remarkable and reflect an immense amount of hard work and of focus. Well done, students. I add my congratulations to the Thurnau professors recognized today as well. One of the most impressive things about the University of Michigan is the outstanding culture of undergraduate teaching that exists within our faculty. This passion for teaching is an integral part of our 200-year legacy as a public university, and we see the results here today in the students we're celebrating. Thank you, Thurnau professors, for your outstanding contributions to education at Michigan. It's also a pleasure to welcome and congratulate the parents and family members who are with us today. All of us at Michigan share in your pride for these students. Thank you for trusting us with your children. Honors convocations at the University of Michigan are about celebrating excellence at the highest level. For this, our 94th annual honors convocation, we examine the role of the university in promoting open-mindedness. It is within both of these concepts, excellence and open-mindedness, that I want to extend a special thank you to today's performers. This ceremony gives our community the opportunity to appreciate their amazing talents and the beauty that comes from hours of study and practice. Bravo. At the University of Michigan, the arts are central to our university's ability to promote and advance open-mindedness. They complete our great celebrations of academic achievement like commencement and honors convocation, and they reinforce the core values that we've embraced over the last 2 centuries. First, that excellence is not possible without open-mindedness, because to learn we must be willing to consider new ideas. And second, that a university cannot be complete without teaching and exposing its community to the expressions and interpretations made possible through the arts. At the University of Michigan, we've always taken great pride in the arts and cultural opportunities that are woven throughout our academic excellence. Research and creativity span not only the fine and performing arts, but also the many disciplines represented all across our 3 campuses. This takes place nearly every day here at the university. We can see, hear, and feel the evidence. We feel it when our performers from our Ann Arbor campus help us understand the emotional impact of complex problems, as they're doing today at Convocation and as they've done in recent months in examinations of social justice. School of Music, Theater, and Dance professor Eugene Rogers said that great art should do more than entertain. Great art should provoke thought and critical discourse, engage the audience, and build a safe, strong sense of community through the exploration of important issues. Rogers directed the Men's Glee Club performance of 7 Last Words of the Unarmed. We hear it when University of Michigan Flint English professor Mary Jo Keatsman uses the language of Shakespeare to teach her students how to connect with the local community and the modern world. Keatsman believes students in Flint can connect with the immediacy of the impact of Shakespeare's words. It can be easy, she says, to forget that all the heat in Shakespeare's language, the coarseness, the violence, the passion, the sorrow, come out of a very basic sense of survival. We see it in the art of Holocaust prisoners, featured in the exhibit hosted at UM Dearborn's Alfred Berkowitz Gallery. Titled Forbidden Art, Illegal Works by Concentration Camp Prisoners, its creators would have been executed if caught making art. Describing a course she designed as part of the exhibit, UM Dearborn professor Anna Muller said, "We are investigating how men and women of different races and ethnicities experienced oppression and how they use their bodies and develop skills to remain human in dehumanizing conditions." This is a role universities can and should play in promoting open-mindedness. By opening our minds, the arts communicate broad perspectives and help us understand difference. They teach us how to express ourselves. They bring us together and inspire change. They are, without doubt, a public good. The importance of the arts to American life and prosperity was first put forward as a policy right here at the University of Michigan campus in 1964. In what would become known as the Great Society speech, President Lyndon Johnson's U of M commencement speech challenged graduates to elevate our national life and to advance the quality of our American civilization. He described our desire for beauty and community as goals that were as fundamental to true prosperity, to educational excellence, and to justice. As the Pulitzer Prize-winning art critic and former Detroit News journalist Philip Kennicott wrote in the Washington Post, Johnson did something unprecedented in American history. He put art, culture, and beauty on the same footing as roads, rights, commerce, and security. If you want to understand Johnson's cultural agenda, Kennicott wrote, you have to see it not as an appendage, but as integrally related to the War on Poverty and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The agenda put forward in the Great Society speech created the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for the Humanities. Since their establishment in 1966, U of M faculty have obtained or received over 500 grants from the NEA and the NEH. This has added to our excellence and helped us become what I believe is the best public university in the world. And while I believe we should always welcome discussions about how we steward a public investment in the arts, we should not fail to honor what so clearly is a public good in America. On that day in 1964, On that day in 1964, President Johnson's Great Society speech harked back nearly 200 years, back to the Declaration of Independence and to those unalienable rights that gave birth to our nation. He reminded us that the purpose of protecting life and liberty was to allow our people to fully engage in the pursuit of happiness. He declared, "Our success in that pursuit is a test of the success of our nation." He expressed a hope that our nation would always be a place which honors creation for its own sake and for what it adds to the understanding of the human race. As the president of a public university, I hope that we will always remember these foundational American values. And as a member of the University of Michigan's community of scholars, I hope that we will always value open-mindedness and that we will work together to uphold Johnson's idea that a great society is not a safe harbor, a resting place, a final objective, a finished work. It is a challenge constantly renewed, beckoning us towards destiny where the meaning of our lives matches the marvelous products of our labor. Thank you all very much. Congratulations again to Angel Scholars, Thurnau professors, others we honor today, and our Sweet 16 basketball team.
Thank you, President Slissel. That was actually inspiring. Didn't know that was a laugh line, but okay. As we close the formal program today, it's my pleasure to invite you to join our honorees for a reception at the Michigan League just across Ingalls Mall. I want to thank you all for being present to share in this celebration. It's wonderful to come together to recognize the accomplishments of our students in every field of inquiry and to honor their teachers. We salute all of their achievements. Our special thanks to the students and faculty from the School of Music, Theater, and Dance for their outstanding performances. The Trombone Ensemble, Olivia Johnson, who sang the national anthem. Ricky Morrow Spitzer, soloist, and Nicholas Roller, pianist. Assistant Professor Tiffany Ng, carolinist. And Professor James Kibbe, organist. We ask that the audience remain at their seats until the recessional march of the platform party has been completed. And now please stand and sing with us as we close with the university's alma mater, the yellow and the blue, which, to help you, is on the back of the program.